Welcome back. This is Kathy from Sewing Story Projects, and I am bringing to you today the Celtic twist block. This is a pattern from McCall's quilting.com, and I will put in a clip real quick here that shows you what the pattern looks like. And I'm going to use both my rotary cutter and ruler and some of my dies to go ahead and cut out the pieces. Alright, so one of the requirements is a 2-inch square, and I do have the 6-inch cube, so I'm going to be using shape number 2, die number 2. If you do not have the 6-inch cube, you can use die number 55775 or die number 55022, and both of those will give you the 2-inch square. Alright, next up I am going to be using, from the 12-inch cube. You can use shape number 8, or I have die number 55005, and that will give you a rectangle here that's 3.5 by 6.5. Alright, you also need a square that's a little larger. This is the 3.5-inch square. So if you have the 12-inch cube, you can use die number 2, shape number 2, or if you do not, which I do not, I have die number 55006, and you can see there are 2 squares here, both measuring 3.5. Alright, so those are the shapes for the dies that I have, and then the rest of the shapes, there's some strips. I'm going to go ahead and use my rotary cutter. Okay, since this is a Celtic twist block for our March wall hanging, I'm going to go ahead and use a combination of different green fabrics. I have 2 darker green fabrics. This is just a plain fabric, and this has a slight print to it. And then I also have 2 lighter green fabrics. This has a dot to it, and this is actually flowers. And those will form those little strips. And then for my background, I'm going to go ahead and use just white to set the whole thing off. Alright, so join me next. We're going to go ahead and cut out the fabric. I'm going to rough cut it. I also use a lot of spray starch. I feel that really helps to make the fabric more sturdy before I go ahead and run it through the cutter. Alright, thanks for joining. Okay, so I brought my die with my 4 layers of white fabric over here to the cutter, and I'm going to go ahead and put the mat on it, and we're going to go ahead and send this through the cutter. Here we go. Cuts really quickly and easily, and then you go ahead and slide the mat off. Alright, and then when I pull this up, voila! I have 4 perfect 3.5 by 6.5 inch rectangles. Okay, so I have a great time-saving tip for you. Alright, so for the green fabrics, I have the 2 dark green and the 2 light green. I need to cut the same shapes. So what I did is I picked one of the fabrics, the light green, and I rough cut out larger than I need size pieces, and then what I can do is place these on top of those fabrics and use this as kind of like a pattern piece to go ahead and cut them out. That way they'll be all pressed, starched, and stacked. I can lay them on the die and run them through the die once. Now for this particular piece, this is the one that I don't have a die shape. This is going to be the 2 by 5 strip. I'm just going to go ahead and cut out smaller strips like that, and then use my rotary cutter and my ruler to go ahead and fine-tune that up so it's exactly the right size. So I thought that was a good idea there to save time, so I thought I'd share it with you. Okay, so I'm on to my last piece. I just pressed and starched this. You can see I'm laying down. I have that light green pattern piece, and then I had done my other light green fabric, and then the first dark green, and then I'm putting this on top of the second dark green. And you can see I just lay them next to each other, and that becomes my pattern piece. And then I just take regular sewing scissors, and it goes really fast. I just simply cut around the shapes, and there we go. And that's a quick rough cut, and they're, like I said, they're already starched and pressed and stacked. Okay, so we're all ready to send this through the cutter. So here we are back at the cutter, and I'm gonna go ahead and put my first stack. This is for the 2-inch squares. I'm gonna go ahead and lay that stack of 4. And then this is the rectangle die. Now this is my non-stretchy fabric, so I can turn the die this way or this way, but this is the rectangle. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the fabric covering, the one rectangle, and leave this one open. And then I'm going to send it through the cutter. Alright, so let's go ahead and do this first one. I'm actually going to need 3 of the 2-inch squares, not 4. So this will actually make an extra one. Okay, so you slide this off. And then that's the excess. And then I actually have 4 sets of 2-inch squares when, like I said, I only need 3, but that's okay. It's always good to have extras. And then this is the rectangle. So let's go ahead and send that through. And slide that off. And take that extra off. And now I have my rectangles. Alright, the final thing is to go ahead and use my rotary cutter. So let me turn the camera a little bit, and we'll take a look at how I do that. Okay, I turn the camera, and I'm over here on my pressing mat. I have my ruler and my rotary cutter. Now I'm going to go ahead and line this first side up here with a line on the rotary mat. Okay, and that evens up the one side, and then I go ahead and flip the whole thing. And I want my strip to be 2 inches wide, so I'm going to go ahead and use the 2-inch line here on my ruler. And go ahead and cut that. Okay. And then I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees, and I'm going to go ahead and straighten out one of the sides. I'm going to line up my bottom part of my ruler here with the straight edge of the fabric, and I'm just going to square up that one end, and again I flip it around. Okay, and then I'm going to line up my ruler with this corner here, and I want this to be 5 inches. So this is a 6-inch ruler, so I'm going to line it up right here, so I have an extra inch here, and I'm going to line up the ruler with that edge, and of course it'll line up across the top, and that will give me a 5-inch by 2-inch rectangle. Not only one, but I have all my colors. I have both dark greens and both light greens. Okay, so that is my longer strip. This is my 2 by 3.5 rectangles, and then I have 3 squares of 2-inch squares. So I have those all set, and now we're ready to go ahead and cut out the white background fabric, which I'm going to do next. Okay, so I needed 4 3.5 by 6.5 rectangles, which I already cut before. The next thing I need is a 3.5-inch square. So I'm going to go ahead here and use die number 2 from my 12-inch cube set. And the last thing I need is 4 squares that are 2-inch, so I'm going to go ahead and reuse this die. This is die number 2 from the 6-inch cube set. And we're going to go ahead and send those through the cutter. Okay, so those are my white squares, my rectangles, and then I need this larger square. Okay, and we're going to send that through the cutter. And that gives me a perfect little 3.5 inch white square. So we are done cutting, and now it's time to lay out the block. So join me back for that part. Okay, so I laid out the block pieces, and it looks really complicated, but it actually turns out to be easy. For the 4 corners here, okay, there's 1 in each corner, you're going to join 2 of the 2-inch squares. Okay, so this is a white and a green. And then you are going to join that to one of the smaller rectangles. All right, and you're going to repeat that for each corner. Okay, so those are those corners. For the white piece, you are going to snowball the corners here with 2 of the smaller 2-inch squares. And for the centerpiece, and this is not tricky, but the only thing is when you go ahead and add the rectangles to this centerpiece, you are going to have to do a partial seam. So instead of starting at the end, you are simply going to start stitching from the middle, and that's as complicated as it gets. So you're going to stitch from the middle to the end, and then go ahead and fully stitch all the other ones, and then you're going to go ahead and add in this last piece and then finish stitching off that partial seam. It's not hard, it's just that is how to put together the center part. And that is it.